Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Tezangausen. July 17th, here are the main news stories at this moment. Putin is no longer very successful at calming Russians down. I think you've noticed that he has this trick. To show the deep people that everything is fine, he meets with some officials. Officials report successes to him, show him some colorful slides. Putin even pretends to understand these pictures to know what's going on. And then, at the end, he says something like, we need to relocate people from slums, we need to. Or, we need to resolve the fuel issue in Crimea as soon as possible, so I'm giving such an order. So recently Putin met with the head of Norilsk Nickel, Potanin. This is a textbook example of a Putin meeting with an official. It's just hilarious. I'm going to show you this video now, and this video is officially posted on the Kremlin's website. They don't see anything wrong with it. Potanin tries to explain to Putin why the economy and Norilsk Nickel are plunging into the abyss, but at the same time everything is supposedly going according to plan. He starts throwing around some terms, hoping that Putin's Botox-filled fish tank will start to boil and Putin will freeze up, which, by the way, is exactly what happened. So, Potanin is answering Putin's question, and pay attention to both the question and the answer. Take a look.
Конъюнктура как сейчас складывается на мировых рынках?
Конъюнктура, Владимир Ильич, складывается сложно. С одной стороны, спрос на наши металлы устойчив, с другой стороны, отказ многих стран от потребления нашего товара приводит к тому, что проблема логистики и сбыта, она непростая. Но мы как подходим к этому вопросу? Опять же, не только обычным традиционным способом работы с партнером, поиском новых рынков, но и опять же с применением новых технологий. И в частности, здесь опять же нам помогают технологии искусственного интеллекта. Базируясь на богатой российской, советской школе материаловедения, мы приступили к изучению свойств, палладия, мы начали с палладия, с создания палладиевой лаборатории. Изучение свойств палладия и его кристаллической решетки позволяет нам создавать материалы, которые обладают новыми сферами применения. То есть не теми традиционными, которые сейчас есть.
Well, this is classic. Demand is steady, but no one is buying. Basically negative sales growth. And Potanin answers like a C student who doesn't know how to respond to the exam question. To the question about the market situation, Soviet material science, crystal lattice innovations. And Potanin, he understands that sitting in front of him is exactly the same kind of character. When asked, why did you attack Ukraine? He answered about Rurik, the Pechenegs, the Polovchins, and all the rest. And you know what's most interesting? While Potanin started studying the crystal lattice of palladium, which has long been studied, Norilsk Nickel's shares have dropped by 40% just in the last 6 months. And after Potanin's meeting with Putin, they immediately fell another 4% in a single day. Well, it's fine. That means now Potanin will study the crystal lattice and things will get moving. And Putin, by the way, did you notice? He looks really downcast. Where's that lively guy who used to run around the stage, stomp his feet, and snap his dentures? Where? Where's that replicant now? He's recharging somewhere, waiting for the next scene. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's important for promoting the channel, and you can do it right now without putting it off. We're fighting against Putin's propaganda, but together we'll be much more effective. And let me remind you, everyone who subscribes, their hair instantly becomes soft and silky, so go ahead and subscribe. By the way, back in college I had to study material science. Yes, that scary subject, and strength of materials. To this day, I remember with horror all those shear force diagrams, bending moments, and what else, cams. Some beams with fixed ends, yield limits. In general, engineering graphics was a whole separate pain. It really was. If you had to study it too, share your impressions in the comments. In Crimea, the situation for the occupiers is getting worse every day. In Kerch, there was loud noise all night. Drones attacked Kerch. And again this morning. NASA's service recorded a fire in the area of the Kerch railway station. Warehouses, trains, and an oil depot with a power substation are burning. Everything is on fire. Fuel. There is no electricity or mobile connection, but hang in there. By the way, where is the author of the original source? Where has Medvedev disappeared to? He hasn't been heard from lately, seems to have run off. Maybe he's out in the swamps of Ryazan, wandering through the forest, talking to squirrels, but that's not all. The very painful operation by Ukraine's drone forces against the Russians continues. As of today, in the past 24 hours, another 12 ships of Russia's shadow fleet have been hit in the Black Sea. 9 bulk carriers, 1 oil tanker, 1 gas carrier, and 1 tugboat. In total, over 12 days of the operation, 159 ships have been put out of action. 117 in the Sea of Azov and already 42 in the Black Sea. That's an incredible pace, just unbelievable. The Black Sea phase of the operation started literally just recently, just the other day on July 15th. The main area of strikes is the waters south of the Kerch Strait. There, ships are waiting to pass through or to transfer cargo. In other words, that's exactly where these anchorage points for tankers and bulk carriers serving Russian exports are concentrated. And the unmanned systems forces are aware of this. Let me remind you, while in the Sea of Azov, these were small River Sea class tankers. In the Black Sea, it's large oil tankers and gas carrier tankers. This is a big problem. Let's watch the video to your favorite music. And pay attention, once again our drones are striking the superstructure, depriving these ships of control. The oil and petroleum products remain in the tanker, posing no threat to the environment. A precision job. Take a look.
Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, дістань до Волгограда, Саратов потруси, нехай гримить в Тамбові, Рязані та Ростові, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси. Дехто каже, що це гріх і так не треба, гнів та розпач можуть карму зіпсувать. Бачу сльози, чути стогін аж до неба. За це все к***и мають поздихать. Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, влупи як слід Вороніж і Курськом закоси. Єлабугу поштрикай, і Новгород великий, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси.
Lavrov, come on, record a new video about pirates. Captain Jack Magyar, here you go. Look how much content I've given you. I think there's another process going on right now, one that's very unpleasant for the Russian Federation. Ship owners are refusing to enter Russian ports on the Black Sea. No one wants to risk their vessels. The fees for transporting goods for Russians will be set much higher. Here's a surcharge for extremely high risk. But I think there won't be many hotheads. The number of tankers there will decrease now. By the way, the recent statements from Turkey that both Ukraine and Russia need to stop attacks in the Black Sea, strikes on ports, I attribute precisely to the fact that Russia is trying to influence Ukraine through Turkey. Let me give you a quote from Peskov. Russia expects that Turkey and other countries will warn Ukraine. Moscow states that it is ready to consider proposals on the safety of shipping if they take Russian interests into account and do not restrict Russia's actions. Seriously? Well, actually, you know, if there are no ships left in the Black Sea, Russia's shadow fleet won't have any problems with shipping. That's the logic. In general, the operation of unmanned systems forces continues, and Ukraine is truly performing a heroic feat. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine. Today, we are continuing to raise funds for the Battalion of Unmanned Systems. Favorite of the 107th Brigade, which is currently carrying out combat missions in the Pokrovsk direction near Dobropilya, one of the hottest areas. The fundraiser is for EcoFlow charging stations. The soldiers have recorded a video message for you. Please take a look.
Ми, військовослужбовці 2-го батальйону безпілотних систем «Фаворит», виконуємо бойові завдання по знищенню ворога на Покровському напрямку та в районі Добропілля. Звертаємось до Бориса Тисенгаузена та спільноти каналу Бориса з проханням допомогти закрити збір на придбання зарядних станцій для АКБ ударних дронів. Разом переможемо! Слава Україні!
Let's help our warriors. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There are options for Mono, Private, and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. There's a QR code in the corner. That's for those watching on other channels. That always leads to the fundraiser as well. And in every episode, I want to say a special thank you from myself and from the dozens of units you have already helped. Thank you so much. Russia is trying to contract, all over the world. They're looking for additional volumes of fuel. They're asking everyone, do you have any fuel? Maybe some diesel, maybe a bit of gasoline. Does anyone have any lying around? So far, India has only been able to confirm 2 deliveries of 30,000 tons each. But that's just a drop in the ocean, half of the Russian Federation's daily consumption. 3 Russian companies immediately asked India to increase supplies even further: Rosneft, Gazprom Neft, and Lukoil. And 3 Indian state-owned companies immediately replied, "We don't have any more. No, we don't have any more. Leave us alone." Meanwhile, Putin's approval rating continues to decline, even according to Russian research. That is, the number of Russians who view Putin's work positively has dropped by as much as 5 percentage points over the past week, from 71% to 66%. This has become the lowest figure in almost 4 years. A similar figure was recorded around 2022, in the fall, when Putin announced mobilization. But these are the findings of a study by the pro-Kremlin Public Opinion Foundation. It's a mystery to me why they even publish these ratings. Although I probably know why. It's to show that the majority of Russians still trust Putin. In other words, no one really knows the actual approval rating. Tomorrow, Putin... What are all these ratings for anyway? Tomorrow, Putin will kiss some boy on the stomach again, and they'll publish a 99% approval rating. That's it. Phew, the rating. Putin's rating is back, and so on. Kim Jong-un doesn't have any ratings at all. No one publishes them, because in North Korea, even a hint that someone might not support the policy, you can end up in prison for a long time for that with Kim Jong-un, or, by the way, your whole family could be sent to labor camps. It's clear that with such grim forecasts, Putin has only one option left: to escalate the situation, and not just with regard to Ukraine, but also against those who are actively helping Ukraine. NATO's eastern flank is preparing for new provocations, possibly more serious than before. This is especially true for all of Russia's neighboring countries. Latvia has increased security at strategic sites due to threats from the Russian Federation. Reuters reports this. So far, this concerns 2 sites. These are the Kegums hydroelectric power plant, one of the largest in the country, and the Inkukalns gas storage facility. It is the largest underground gas storage facility in the Baltic states. By the way, it is used not only by Latvia, but also ensures energy stability for Estonia and Lithuania, at least partially. Finland as well. In general, they expect the senile old man to attempt sabotage at critical sites, and are actively preparing for it. But Putin only understands force, not words, meaning he always responds. We will take revenge, we will respond in kind. He always responds in this standard way. Unfortunately, our European friends are very diplomatic in this regard, although not always anymore. If, for example, Putin knew that setting fire to a postal warehouse somewhere in Poland would result in 10 warehouses being set on fire in Russia, then perhaps he would behave differently. But for European partners, there is the law, while for ghouls like Putin, that law simply doesn't exist. That's the difference. But I hope that very soon someone will find a way to deal with him. Moreover, there's always a life hack for our European partners. If you don't want to do it yourselves or are afraid of something, give Ukraine the means or sell them to us, and Ukraine will strike on your behalf and will even thank you for it. Well, to everyone who supports Ukraine, I say thank you. Meanwhile, the more anxious things get in Russia, the more active all sorts of Putinist freaks become. And Klobistin over there, he's planning to burn Moscow down just in case. He could start right now, by the way, no need to put it off. Chechnya has lost it on something heavy. Solovyov is switching to ultrasound more and more often. His shows are getting darker and darker like a storm cloud. And now Mikhalkov has made his mark. Do you know what Nikita Mikhalkov said? He said the special military operation was sent to us by God, so we would wake up from our stupor. I thought about it and double-checked. He really did say that God sent them the war. The senile regime nonsense himself. For some reason, he's in no hurry to go to war himself. So, the lack of gasoline, I'm curious, who sent you that? But we know who. In general, the Mikhalkov dynasty. They're amazing opportunists. They're opportunists to the core. Simply put, his father, Sergei Mikhalkov, managed to maintain an exceptionally high status under Stalin, Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Gorbachev, Yeltsin, and even under Putin. Even official Russian publications have noted this, describing his unique ability in this regard. A unique ability to fit in at court under virtually any regime. That is, Mikhalkov Sr. was the author of the Anthem of the USSR and the Anthem of Russia. And to understand just how much this is a family of opportunists, here's a fact. Mikhalkov Sr.'s own brother, Mikhail, ended up in German captivity during the war. And according to his own recollections, he served in German organizations and claimed that he even wrote a march for a tank division, SS Death's Head, where the lyrics included, "Where Hitler is, there is victory." This is not a joke. In other words, they served wherever they ended up. An absolutely unprincipled family, all of them. And as for Nikita, in my opinion, he even outdid them all. Listen, I just thought, if Mikhalkov says that the war was sent by God, so it turns out he deified Putin. He'll definitely get some kind of state order for that, just like before. But they're absolutely sick. In other words, they've completely lost it. Sometimes you think, no, that can't be true. But no, they actually say it. Well, another governor came out with an interesting phrase. They're afraid of the truth because only true information appears in our Russian social networks, and it bothers them. This was said by Senator Vladimir Jabarov, or Vladimir Jabakotov, as he's sometimes called. He explained that VKontakte and Max were removed from Google because of the fear of truthful information, that only there is the truth, and the West is afraid of this truth. Honestly, that's the joke of the month. You know, Jabakotov should understand that sometimes removing crap is just removing crap. Pardon my French. And also, according to the most honest senator himself, there was much more democracy in the USSR than in the West. Well, who's going to argue with that? Who's going to argue? It's interesting, by that logic, why are Western social networks like Facebook and Instagram banned in Russia? Probably because there's no truth there, right? The truth is only on VKontakte and in Messenger and Max. So you know what amazes me? The persistence with which some enthusiasts eagerly kiss up to the Botoxed behind and set up VPNs for themselves. Why do they do this? To come here, to these banned social networks, and prove to us and the West how good Putin is? You'd think, why? Isn't he in your Max Messenger or wherever else on VKontakte? So just stay there and chat comfortably. No, instead they download a VPN, use it to get in here and write comments. So my dear viewers, do you ever feel the urge to install a VPN, download Odnoklasniki, go there and try to prove something to the vodka and herring biomass on Odnoklasniki? Does anyone here ever feel that urge? So why do they? Where does that come from in them? And another thing about those little bastards. Europeans have rebelled against the decision of the International Olympic Committee to ease sanctions against Russian and Belarusian athletes. 9 countries that are members of the European Union. In a letter addressed to the European Commissioner for Sport, they called for an end to funding for those sports organizations that have allowed Russians and Belarusians to participate again, including the IOC, the World Aquatics Federation, and the International Fencing Federation. The letter was signed by Estonia, Denmark, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Poland, Romania, and Sweden. Thank you for taking this stance. As they say, the rest of you should catch up. And as for the IOC, they just mumbled something. We are forced to navigate complex realities. Yes, you are a bunch of sellouts. What are you even talking about? What realities? There's a war going on. People are being killed under that flag you allow Russians to carry, and under that anthem. Ukrainians are being killed. You know, in this case, you don't even need to dig deep. Take this fencing federation, for example. For almost 15 years, it was headed by none other than Alisher Usmanov, a Russian billionaire. After the sanctions were imposed, of course, he formally stepped down from his position, but I think you all understand perfectly well what that means. Over there at the International Olympic Committee, of course, there's supposedly no war at all. There's only money. Swiss lasagna, they're waiting for it in their office on the shore of Lake Geneva. Everything is quiet and calm. The consciences of the sports officials are clear because they never use them. By the way, stopping the funding of these moral degenerates is the only language they understand. By the way, did you know that, as it turns out, Ukraine is creating problems for Russia all over the world? Ukrainian military, let me quote now, Deputy Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, stated that Ukrainian military personnel are present in a number of African countries and have created a second front against Russia there. Seriously? He mentioned that they're in Mali, in Libya, in South Sudan, everywhere. Ukraine is creating a second front against Russian private military companies. So it turns out Ukraine is so cunning that it decided to chase Russia all over the globe. Well, now they've even officially admitted it. basically wherever Putin screws up now, it's definitely Ukraine's fault. It's Ukraine. They've created a second front. I think he'll regret attacking our country 1,000 times over. But in Russia, strangely enough, business didn't believe in all these meetings between Putin and officials. A mass sell-off of gas stations has begun in Russia, with more than 150 listings already on trading platforms. That is, both individual gas stations and entire chains have been put up for sale. Owners are offloading them. These are the properties in question. Moreover, they all give different reasons. Some say they need to pay off a loan, others have some other excuse. But I think they simply don't believe, or they understand perfectly well, especially the locals, how long it will take to repair these refineries. Especially now with Ukrainian ballistic missiles coming in, they'll never be repaired. That's why they're offloading the gas stations, while they can still get at least something for them. They didn't trust Putin, you see how it turns out. By the way, in Russia, there's still no law against not trusting Putin. Somehow the mummified communists overlooked that, but I think it will happen soon. Well, friends, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, subscribe to this channel, don't forget. And let's help our soldiers from the 107th Brigade. The link to donate is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.